Today on the Beginner Photography Podcast.
I see photography as a way of extracting from nature what the best it has when it comes to visual beauty. So that's what I try when I have a drone.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast, where each week we interview the world's most interesting photographers to learn what it really takes to capture beautiful images and compelling stories so that you can start to do the same. Today, my photo friends, we are chatting with Henrique Murta, a fine art landscape photographer who uses his drone to capture just some of the world's most beautiful places. And in this interview, Henrique shares how he was able to blend two passions to find drone photography, what elements make up a compelling drone photo, and he also shoots with a DSLR, so when to know which tool to use for the image that you want to capture. I also posted a link to some of Henrique's work in the show notes, and I highly recommend that you take a look before diving into this episode just to get an idea of the type of drone images that Henrique captures. These aren't just like snaps from a local park. Like these are, incredible images that obviously he uses a drone to capture. Now, if you don't have a drone, I really think that there's still a lot in this interview for you to learn because a lot of it revolves around obviously listening to yourself, finding and creating images that you personally love, and how to do so. So this is, as I said, more of how am I trying to say this? This is going to be an episode where I think that while you're out shooting, you're going to be able to reflect back on and still be able to pick out tips, again, even if you don't use a drone. So stick around for this. But first, I really want to give a big shout out to Taria for leaving the podcast a 5-star iTunes rating and review. Taria says the Beginner Photography Podcast is fun, very informative, and offers interesting and inspirational interviews. I decided to teach myself how to use our DSLR after having our second child. The Beginner Photography Podcast provided me with the tools to finally learn how to take an excellent picture and a whole community of supportive photographers of all levels and expertise in the Facebook group. Taria, thank you so much for the kind words. I am, beyond excited that the podcast can be a part of your photography journey to help you capture your little ones, their childhood. And thank you for enjoying the supportive Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook community. My goal with this podcast is just to simply obviously give you the knowledge, but also give you the encouragement to just go out and shoot. And that is exactly what you are doing. If you have found any value in the podcast, please consider leaving the podcast a review yourself. It is free, and it shows potential guests that this isn't just some fly-by-night podcast. And it lets me know if I'm on the right track, if I'm doing the right things, and you're truly enjoying this thing. Good news! If you are listening on Spotify, this is brand new, you can now rate the podcast as well by simply going to the show page for the podcast. You'll see a little star icon on the left hand side, I believe, and then you just click that, and then you can just leave the podcast review right there. So there you go. Thank you so much for your support. With that, let's go ahead and get on into today's podcast with Henrique Murta. Henrique, I know that you didn't grow up in photography. How did photography introduce itself into your life?
Okay, so I remember photography as something very present in my life from the very beginnings of my life, because my father happens to be a nature photographer. So I remember, it's among my first memories, like myself in this living room with some, like, a bunch of people sitting and watching some projections with like an analogic film photography being like projected on the wall. So since I'm like very, very young, I look at photography. And so yeah, when I got like, I don't know, since I was a kid, actually, my father would go out with me with his camera and show me stuff. So really, it dates back to my early times, really.
Wow. Were you taking pictures at the same time, like with your dad, or was it more of a?
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
I would sometimes take pictures with him, but like nothing serious, like not really serious. It didn't become serious until I don't know, 10 years ago, more or less.
Why
Yeah.
then? Why not? Why not as a child?
I don't know, man. You know, there was one thing that was funny. I went out with my father one day to take a few pictures. We went to the forest, and I couldn't focus it, and I got like, ah, come on. I got like bored to try to focusing it, and then like a few months later, I realized that I had a problem in my eyes. Like I needed some glasses, but anyway, this was something that for some time made me not get so much interested. I thought, oh no, this is a little bit hard. I can't focus, and
Hmm.
just something I passed by. Uh,
Would you say
just
that you had, when it came to like going out in the forest, compared to like where you are today, like you go out and I feel like as a photographer, especially a fine art landscape photographer, when you go out and you look for photos, like you kind of see the world through that lens of what would this look like as a photo. Now, with your dad being a landscape photographer as well, do you think that that was built as you were a child, or was that something that you developed later in life when you started taking photography seriously?
No, I think my sort of my the way I see things, the way I try to arrange things in space aesthetically. I think the way I do it now is a product of something that has been like has been built since I was a kid, of course, because look, I would like sit and watch photos, photo projections, and I would always like try to. I was observing, all this compositional sensitiveness, I really think it was something progressive, from that started in my early days. And although I said I only started to take pictures sort of seriously 10 years ago, uh, I always when I went out with a camera and like in my early trips, I would always take pictures trying to fit, like trying to compose it well, and not just take like snapshots. And I always had this, this search for sort of search for the perfect composition. So this is something that my brain has been like working on. I think like for my whole life, really.
I would imagine that looking at um, intentional photographs as a child would probably start to build that frame in your head of what a photograph should look like, as opposed to if because I think about this sometimes because photography, I feel like there's this idea around photography that um, when it comes to getting a good photo, like it just takes it's either natural talent, right? People believe that it's either natural talent or it's something that like you have to work incredibly hard on to just get to a like a base level of being able to take photos, right? Because anybody can use their iPhone and just snap a
Yeah,
shot, no big deal.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
when it comes to that intention, that's what's more difficult. And getting that start like from childhood has got to be something that today, even though you didn't start taking photography seriously, I guess you could say, professionally for the past 10 years or so, uh, all that time, it just built up and built up so
Yeah.
that when you did finally pick up that camera, here you are today. So, talk to me about that transition. Like, because growing up, did you know that you wanted to be a photographer? Did you go to school
No,
for
no, no.
photography?
I didn't know I wanted to be a photographer. What I always knew is that I wanted to work with nature.
Mhm.
It's more like I found photography within, the nature subject than the other way around. So, yeah, like, and I also, I can't tell you an exact day in which, okay, from this day on, I became like a serious photographer. It was something that was, that it happened gradually. My interest was uh, became to increase like little by little, and then one day I said, "Hey, I got some good stuff in my database." It's sort of like that. There was like a very important milestone, which was in. There were some milestones, of course. Uh, one one milestone I considered to be important was about 10 years ago when I did a trip with my family, and we went to Patagonia, and it was really about me with like a DSLR and my father, and my family is also very, everybody likes photography. So it was a lot. It was a very photographic trip. So that was something like sort of all the time trying to chase, compositions. But I think the biggest milestone happened when I shift from a compact camera to a DSLR, like to be mine, not like a DSLR of my father that would like steal for a while. So it happened in, I'd say, uh, 2018. Yeah, 2018. So that's when I started like really getting, like good files, like photography that I can print in large. I can do large artwork, like large prints.
So when you made that transition from compact camera to a DSLR, that I mean, that had to have been an entirely new world. What was the most challenging part for you to just to be able to take photographs again? Was it a technical thing?
Uh, it wasn't an entire new world because I was already taking photos. I think I took too long to leave the semi-professional, the non-professional cameras because I already
Mhm.
knew everything. I think, I knew everything like HDRs, bracketing, everything. Not everything, but like I already knew a lot. It wasn't hard to operate the DSLR. I also had already operated them.
Gotcha.
It was, but the big transition is that now it was mine, and now everything I produced was like had a professional quality.
hmm hmm So one thing that I'm excited to talk about today, and one of the reasons why I found you, is because of your work with drones. You use drones quite often today on the majority of your travels. What is about the drone that you fell in love with so much?
Okay, so I think it was 2016 or 2017. I don't know. My father bought this drone. It's called Solo. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I have not.
Yeah, it was a good drone. You had to put your a GoPro on it so you could take photos. But it was a good drone. So my father bought it to he was excited with it because it had just arrived in the market. The prices were had reached like a level that they were payable. So he bought it. And at the beginning, I wasn't so excited about it. I mean, I've never been excited about cars or like airplanes or this sort of toys. I never cared much about it. So at the beginning, it wasn't something very, I didn't get so excited. But when I tried it, I remember we were in my uncle's farm, and then I gave it a try. When I realized I didn't have a toy, I didn't have an airplane, but it was more like a camera that I could place wherever I wanted, and I could like get whichever perspective I wanted. Then I got like that blew my mind. So I started to experience to try stuff with it, and the fact that I could like always uh, place it wherever I wanted to take the picture from whichever location I wanted. That was freedom. I mean, as a landscape photographer, I mean, you can talk to all landscape photographers that are used to going out with DSLRs. Uh, it's very common for you to arrive in a point of view or a certain place where you have some nice views, and then you try to align things for a good composition, and then you say, oh, if I were like 30 meters above, 15 meters on the left, then it would be perfect because that subject would be on the diagonal. I don't know. Suddenly that was possible. It wasn't just possible. It was easy. It was just about like, come on, you can put it wherever you want. So yeah, so it's like less constraints. And then I started to explore it, to explore this thing of composing without constraints. and shifting, the camera to through dimensionally to try to find the best spot. And I think my answer is getting too long, but anyway, it's yeah, it's sort of that. That's what made me get crazy about drone photography, and that's why I think I'd say today it's one of the main branches of my photography.
What do you remember that first photo? Maybe not your first drone photo, but do you remember the first drone photo that made you think, "Wow, like this is really something special"? What was that?
Um, I I don't think I remember this photo, huh? I remember the concept. I remember trips in which I took photos, and I got my mind was blown by that. One special, I was in Ilha Bela, which is like an island in the southeast of Brazil. Very, very beautiful place where the rainforest meets the sea. And I remember hiking for like kilometers and kilometers with a bag in my hands and the drone in the bag because the drones weren't so compact at that time. I think it was 2017. Yeah, that was in 2017. And I took some pictures and I said, "Oh, this is like so impressive." I mean, I could get the whole beach and the contact between the beach and the sea, the forest. So I remember, yeah, some results that were quite different from what I was used to.
So, okay, so we kind of touched on it just a moment ago about how how the drone allows you to uh, be without constraints as far as your composition goes. But talk to me about why. Okay, hold on. Let me formulate this question. So,
Yeah,
we can, as you said, we as photographers, we show up to the scene, we have the camera in our hand, we see it, we take it. It's either you get your composition a little higher, a little lower, you get some foreground elements, whatever. But aside from that, that is about it. It fits within that constraint, right? But
yeah.
through that, people have still been able to take some incredible images, right? So with that photo that you're describing right here, where there's rainforest and then there's also sea, can you describe to me why the drone was a better tool for capturing that photo than a DSLR would have been?
Okay, I won't say it's a better tool because you can, as you were saying, you can get some mind-blowing stuff with DSLRs. I myself use my DSLR like real often as well. Actually, you can get like foregrounds that are very close to you if you use wide angle and things that you usually can't do with a drone because the drone's going to be a bit further than this kind of foreground. But it's just different, It's a
Mm-hmm.
different kind of photography. It is aerial. You start like you start playing with the composition in a different way, arranging things in a different way. I wouldn't say it's better. I wouldn't say
Mm-hmm.
it's better. Sometimes, for example, if you want to take pictures of a natural monument, for example, like a big, for example, volcano or a big, mountain summit. Sometimes, so as you can really get the best image of it, you won't be able to get with a DSLR just because of the perspectives. Sometimes imagine you're like walking up a volcano, you're gonna look and you're gonna see the volcano, you're gonna take a picture, you won't really get like you won't get its power. If you fly a drone and you're like sort of I don't know, 200 meters away from the volcano, not above the volcano, but sort of like in its middle, in the middle of its height, and you
Mm-hmm.
can see it goes, it grows in front of you up, and you also see its base. You wouldn't be able to do that with a DSLR, and as you had also a helicopter. So
Yeah.
it's just different, man.
So
It's
then,
different.
yeah, no, and I appreciate that because I think that's what draws a lot of people to drone photography is that it's unique. It's not something that we see every day, like with our uh, naked eye. But with everything, even photography, there are ways that we can take it to that next level, right? That's the reason why people buy DSLRs, because we can
Yes, of
achieve
course,
things
definitely. Yeah,
that we
yeah,
don't
yeah.
naturally see with our eyes. So when it comes to drones, obviously it's a, we can get that different perspective, but um, how is it that you're using the drone in a artistic sense? As a fine art photographer, what is it that you look for in your drone photos that achieve the look that you want? Like what are those elements? Does that question make sense?
Yes, but I think my answer would be the same for the pictures I make when I'm not flying. The main idea of my photography is to arrange things like three-dimensionally, so I can extract from nature its beauty on its like best shape. I see photography as a way of extracting from nature what the best it has when it comes to visual beauty. So that's what I try when I have a drone. I mean, there are differences because um, a drone, you have more freedom when it comes to playing with compositions of the big landmarks, like of big hills, big waterfalls. So you can I don't know, you can explore more angles that you wouldn't be able to explore with a DSLR without walking too much. um, but what I look for is always like always my outstanding beauty. That's what I try to extract from nature. And also, as I'm not as my art is not 100% realistic, I also my post processing, I also enhance stuff like details that already exist in the natural world. I make them I sort of highlight them in a selective way,
Mhm.
so it gets like, I don't know, so I can really put my vision. I can mix up the way I see things with the way things really are.
Yeah.
My answer extended a little bit towards another side, but I hope I have answered what he wanted. I don't know.
So I definitely have questions about the post processing side, but I think what I'm
Mm.
trying to get at here is there are I can give my mom the best camera in the world, and I can have her go visit the I don't know, the Grand Tetons, right? Mountains, beautiful
Right.
mountain range, and the photo that she takes, it's going to be a snapshot, regardless of the camera that she's got. You know, it's different with you. I think it's different with most professional photographers because we use the camera not just to capture what is right here in front of us, but to essentially build something to be right here in front
Yeah.
of us. So, what do you think that makes what is it? What are the elements that you look for in a photograph to um okay, let me rephrase that. What elements make up an Enrique photograph as opposed to just a traditional snapshot?
So we're talking about just the capturing part of my
Hmm.
artistic process, right? Not post
Yes.
processing. Because
Correct.
the
Correct.
post processing is very important for the Enrique part of the story, the
Okay.
Enrique taste.
We'll get there in just a moment.
Okay, cool,
Yes.
cool, cool. So I think it's about trying to arrange things three-dimensionally. There's also something I need to mention, that I am a geologist, so I was trained to identify geometrical patterns and features in nature. Um, so yes, I always, the I try to recognize and I arrange this geometrical elements we see in the landscape, and I try to arrange them in the way that they're going to be like in the most appealing way when it comes to aesthetical um, like equilibrium, balance, aesthetical balance. Um, yeah, I think that's it. I just try to arrange things in a way they're going to be interesting. Uh, Try to
So
get the best angle.
no, I love that answer, and I think that you're just glossing over something that's really important here. Is that it's just your background in
Yeah.
geology as somebody who sees the world, I think, probably different than everybody else. um,
Yeah.
because you have more of an in-depth knowledge of what it is that you're looking at. Where again, that example of my mom, she's going to go out and she's going to see the Grand Tetons and she's going to say, "Oh, this is nice, this is beautiful," and she'll take the photo, maybe not knowing why it's beautiful. So what I'm hearing from you is that through your education of geology, you know what it is that you're looking at, you know why it's interesting. So now you take that, and then through your artistic lens that maybe you got through your father, just all those years of studying photographs, and then you take that and then you put it in a visually, aesthetically pleasing way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
Why I do that? Uh, I don't know. I got like, it's like the the spell of nature. It just makes you, I don't know, it's sort of an addiction. I just want that beauty, and I want that beauty, and I wanted to I want to get to, to see the places where this natural beauty reach its like maximum levels. And once I get to this place, I want to see things like from an angle in which they get better. It's about the search for beauty, I think, in nature. Not only in nature. Sometimes I do some architecture as well, but like
Mhm.
mostly in nature. It's about the search for like for beauty.
Okay, so now let me ask you another question here. Photography can be very much a personal journey that somebody goes on. There are photographers who shoot their entire lives, and some of their family members don't even know that they take photos, and yet they're a very accomplished photographer. Why is it important for you to share your photographs?
Okay. Uh, whenever you experience something that is very like strong and very very, I'd say, mind blowing. Whenever you experience a kind of beauty that really moves you, you want to share it. I don't know. That's what happens with me. I want to share it. I want other people to feel that as well. It's just, nature is so. I mean, it can make you. It brings happiness. To see beautiful stuff. To contemplation state is something that uh, it does well for you. And also there's this side of like really the sort of the need to share all these these beautiful experiences I have with this visual natural wonders, with these natural wonders. But there's also unfortunately, I mean, the human footstep, uh, we're just trying a lot of stuff. We're getting, our population is growing, growing, growing. We're just trying a lot of stuff. Places where I've been that were impressive. Now I got back a few years later, and then I said, but this place was a forest. Now there's like a field. So this is something that it's really it's deteriorating. Like the natural world is sort of deteriorating. So and also for the people to care about it, they have to know it. They have to experience it. I mean, if you live in a city, I don't know, just you have the urban life, and you're not so used to seeing the forest, the natural wonders. Of course, you care about them because you've seen them, but you don't care that much if you haven't experienced them very, very intensively. So I need to. I mean, one of my missions is to show people how precious this natural world is, how precious this beauty is, so I can touch them, so they know what nature is, and then they get like more sensitive about it, and I don't know, preservation starts to play a I don't know, bigger role in their ideologies.
Oh, I love that. That was such a great answer. That is something that, um, I mean, what you had said there about, we see it, like we care about it, but until you do go and you do see those changes in person, that's an entirely different experience right there. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that you're trying to capture that and that you're trying to share that. And and get people excited about preserving the world. That's awesome. So let's go ahead and move on now to the post processing side of your work, because as any
Right.
photographer knows, you go out, you take a photo, it can take some work to get it to a point that you're very happy with. So, talk to me about your post processing and what that process means to you and your photos.
Okay, so I'd say the post processing uh, part of the of my artistic workflow is extremely important for my results. It's really extremely important. Uh, I usually, especially for landscape photography, for the artwork to be the way I want, I usually need like fair amount of time post processing the image. For macro photography, for wildlife macro photography, it's a bit different because the photos, I don't know, it's crazy, but there's a lot more photos that you have to throw away. But when the photo is good, like you don't need to do much.
Mhm.
Like if you take a macro photography of a bug, a red bug, it's gonna be red and it's gonna be sharp. You won't need to do much. But with the lens, it's different. Uh, you know, it's more complex. These complex compositions and complex images with lots of elements, like wide angle landscape photos. There's a lot you can do there. You have a lot of space to work your vision inside it. So I do a lot of stuff. I mean, manipulate I don't manipulate images, not much. Like I never put elements in my photos that didn't exist.
Sure. Hmm.
I don't do that. I don't, for example, uh, get the sky of a photo and the land of another photo and mix them. I don't have any problems with the people who do that and with the artworks that have that. I mean, it's all right as long as the photographer the artist is honest about what he's
Hmm.
doing. Everything, I mean, if we're talking about art, everything is possible. We're not going to be like, he can't do that. No, no, I'm just talking about my way, my art. I don't like manipulate too much. Sometimes I may extract, I may like clone out, stamp out some elements that may be like distracting. For example, if I have a nice landscape composition and there's like a branch of a tree coming in one, getting inside the frame from one of the sides of it, I may clone it out. This sort of
Hmm.
stuff I do sometimes. Um, Also, I do a lot of panoramic photography. So, I mean, like it's when you take like a panorama and you do maybe, let's say, 180 degrees, and you put it in a rectangle, there's gonna be deformation for sure, right? It's impossible to have like a purely natural, a purely like if you're doing wide angle, if you're doing a panorama, there's going to be deformation. So whenever I do panoramas, I quite often I have to work on deformation in Photoshop. There would be something sort of that this can be interventions that are sometimes a bit aggressive. But yeah, when it comes to manipulation, that's it. And when it comes to like dodging and burning and like just like regular adjustments in post processing, I do a lot of selective post processing. My idea is to I'd say my artwork style is sort of hyper realistic. So I all the elements that I'm working on, they exist, they do exist, but I make them show up sort of in a different way that they actually are when you look at them with your naked eyes. Uh, an example could be like, so this thing about hyperrealism, I try to enhance details that are usually not very easily noticed by us. For example, you have the leaves of a plant, and they're like very smooth variations in the green tones. What I can do, I can like get the smooth variations and make them become more noticeable by for example, making the green tones that are a little bit bluish become more bluish, and the green tones that are a little bit yellowish become more yellowish. So you start seeing patterns that were sort of hidden. They weren't hidden, but they weren't like very easily noticeable. So I like to play with this sort of stuff, which actually exists, but our naked eyes tend to perceive in a different way.
Hmm.
There's a lot of stuff I could be talking here forever, actually, when it comes to yeah
Well, okay, then,
to
then let me ask you, when it comes to post processing, especially things like, so like as a wedding photographer, I really try to make sure that on the wedding day, I'm gonna get it as close to right as possible in camera, so that when it comes time to editing, I have very minimal editing to do.
yeah
But from my conversations that I have with landscape photographers, it's almost the opposite. It's like I want the most flat, probably the most boring photo that's going to come out of camera, because that's
yeah
going to give me the most flexibility to be able to work with
yeah.
in post processing. So when you open up one of these files, what is the first thing that you look to do?
Okay, so the first thing I want to do, first thing I do is work on exposition. So I try to balance the lights in general, like um, just try to make the histogram become a little bit more well distributed. I also one of the first things I work on is temperature and tint. So these are the things that I almost always do in the whole photo. I also work a little bit on the shadows, a little bit on the contrast, and a little bit on the highlights. When it comes to the to adjustments, adjustments that are going to affect the whole image. But right in the beginning, after doing these small adjustments, I start my selective post processing. So I start like selecting areas of the image and then working on colors, working on contrast, uh, like working on texture and lots of stuff. Lots of
Gotcha.
dodging and burning, and also something very interesting is to use this, which is like a Wacom,
Oh,
to
okay, yeah.
to it makes the post processing become a more enjoyable experience because you really like sort of painting. It's not painting because you're not like just drawing traces, but you're like selecting with your pen exactly where you want that kind of adjustment to happen. So it's like a trip, you know?
It's funny.
Yeah.
I purchased a Wacom tablet. I'm not sure, a few years ago, and because I was told, something very similar. I was like, yeah, this is really going to help out. So I brought it into my wedding photography, and I couldn't get the hang of it. Like it is a pretty complex tool, but you look on YouTube and you see people doing some pretty incredible things. But I guess at that same token, I do love to edit on my iPad for the flexibility of being able to, I guess, make those more selective Maybe it's just now that I think about it, maybe it's just like having the tablet on the desk surface, but me having to look at a screen. There's some sort of disconnection right there. I don't know. That's strange, but
So
definitely something
usually,
to look into. Go on. Sorry.
sorry, you usually edit on your tablet.
Uh, for my personal work, for weddings, it's all
Okay.
on the computer. But yeah.
Yeah, because if you use your tablet, you probably have to use something like Lightroom, not the classic version. So it gets,
Hmm.
I mean, if you're doing wedding photography, you can do a lot of stuff way like more optimized if you use Lightroom Classic.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. All
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
wedding
So
images go through Classic. Personal images go through Lightroom CC, and then every
yeah.
once in a while I bring something into Procreate just to see how crazy I can get with it, and that's a lot of fun. I want to
Okay.
ask now about your. You have a project called Habitat, and this is how I found you through
Okay.
the Drone Awards
Yeah,
and their
cool.
website. So your project Habitat is the blend of human architecture rising up from nature, right? So tell me where
Yeah.
this idea came from.
It's funny because this idea it actually came from me diving deep into my photography database. Of course, this is something that always caught my eyes. Now, I mean, as I said in the text, I don't know if you remember, but like, I mean, I'm usually searching like 100% natural places. I don't want to see the human trace, you know. That's what my goal is. I want to go natural, like 100%. But in a few occasions, like you see some very fine balance when it's like a an anthropic element in the landscape, in the land. Sometimes it fits very well, and so I've been collecting images of these situations for a few years. So I joined them together in one collection, and yeah, that was the idea. It's something that has, you know, always sort of astonished me
Mhm.
because uh, yeah, it can be, you can find some fine balance.
So
Uh,
I want to ask because now I'm not sure if this was just because it was on the Drone Awards website or whatnot, but it seemed like all the photos were very much wide landscape, you know, giant mountain, and then tiny little village, you know, and maybe something that would be difficult to capture with the DSLR, obviously because of that perspective. But why in this situation was, or I guess how in this situation did the drone benefit the story that you were trying to tell over just a traditional DSLR?
so the thing about drone photography is that you can get you, when you're looking at the lens in a more macro way, like when you're looking at the landscapes without like foregrounds, and you're looking in a macro way. I mean, usually you can't do that with a DSLR unless the point of view is right exactly in the perfect place where the, you know, the little church or whatever is going to be aligned with the hill, and you're going to have that diagonal. Unless you're very lucky and there's a point of view in that perfect place, you're not going to be able to make it, you know, to arrange it perfectly. Because what I do is I put it, for example, you know, I put this church. The church is here. It's facing the sunset. The sunset is here. So you have the frame, and you have the church here, the sunset here, the waterfall like coming here. You can't arrange it. I mean, you can arrange it with a DSLR, but it's just it's just too complicated. You're gonna do it once, 3 times in your life. You're gonna be lucky enough to make it. But I mean, if you're not like free to fly, you can't do this sort of composition so easily.
Yeah. Oh man. Uh, I love having conversations like this because it allows me to dive deeper into a world that I'm not um, deep into, I suppose. Um, Now, this coming weekend, I will be going out to Denver for an engagement session for a couple of mine, and I will be bringing a drone. So, without having been there, without seeing this couple, do you have any advice for me to make sure that I can get the best photo possible?
Okay. Uh, First, to avoid stress, it's nice to plan the flights in a way that there's going to be no people around or very close to the drone. So you need to know like exactly like how to, I don't know, maybe you're going to do a zoom out. A zoom out would be a good thing to do. You know, you can start recording like very close to the couple as if you were holding a camera in your hands, but
Hmm.
suddenly the camera goes out and then you see the whole place, you know. This is something that, I mean, this is gonna be, everybody's gonna is gonna like it, you know. You can do
Okay.
a zoom out. You can even do it like sort of in an automatic way. Have you ever tried the quick shots?
I have, yeah, for my I have a DJI Spark, which is an older camera.
Yeah, yeah, I
I'll be
know. Yeah,
taking I think it's the Mavic 2, I believe.
Mavic
I'll be
2.
I believe I'll be taking that out to Denver. Yeah.
That's the drone I use. It's like
Oh, good.
good stuff, man. Like,
Okay.
yeah, no, no, you can get some. Also, like, its dynamic range is way better than the other, you know, the previous models of
Mhm.
DJI. So you can, even if you have a sunset, it can be cool. I mean, The dynamic range is good enough for you to do some sunset. Talking about footage, huh? Because photos is
Uh,
a whole other.
no, I
Uh,
mean, I'll probably be doing both. I'm definitely going to try the zoom out. I
yeah,
like that idea. But as
yeah,
far
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
photos go, so as you were saying,
Okay.
I had one idea, and tell me, I guess, how I could make this better. And essentially, so unfortunately, they really wanted to go when there was going to be snow on the ground, and looking at the weather, there's not going to be snow on the ground. So my idea is to pivot and think just large natural landscapes here. As here in Indiana, there's no large natural landscapes. It's just cornfields. Um,
Uh-huh.
so the idea is essentially what I'm thinking: big landscape, tiny people. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So the place is gonna be it's gonna be like a beautiful natural place.
Yeah, it'll be up in the mountains.
Cool. Okay. Okay. So something that I would recommend for sure is doing panoramic shot. Do panoramas. Like
Okay.
really do that. Yeah, yeah. Because um, you're gonna have a lot more possibilities in the post processing to do something amazing. You know, you can when you do a large panorama, then when you post processing, you can like sort of uh, you can you can like photograph again. You know, because you can choose the frame in there. You're gonna have lots of megapixels, and you can choose the best frame.
Hmm.
When you're taking panoramic photography, there's lots of tricky technical issues. Also, composition can be a lot harder because you're not like really seeing the results as you
Of
are when you
course.
have like a rectangle. You have to imagine. So you have to look, okay, so I have this place here, and then I have this place here. And then you have to imagine and see how that would be in a rectangle. Okay, so this you have to imagine to try to see if there would be balance, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I'd recommend like trying to scouting and trying to find the best place in the air where you could do like a sort of 180 degrees panoramic and and get the best out of it. Also, if it's probably it's going to be sunset, yeah,
Or sunrise.
or sunrise. All right.
Hmm.
So I bracket for sure, man. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, bracket five. You know, do like
Five. Wow.
bracket.
Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because yeah, yeah. This is. I mean, you know, when you're using a drone, you have way less constraints when it comes to composition, but you have way more constraints when it comes to dynamic range and megapixels,
Hmm.
quality. Mavic 2 is great, but anyway,
Well,
it's
hold on. Quick question about that. So, bracketing is taking, say, a photo properly exposed, taking a photo overexposed, taking a photo underexposed, and
yeah.
then are we merging those photos together? And if so, on a drone, how does that work? Because there's slight movements, right? Does it match up pretty well?
Nah, it's easy. It's okay, huh?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
yeah. I
built into
mean,
the drone, or is that something that I
no,
have to? It's not
you
okay.
can. No,
Manual
no, you have to do
control.
it by yourself. There's like two. You can do just sorry, just one parenthesis. Just one thing
Side
here.
note.
Uh,
Yeah.
Side note, yeah, yeah, yeah. Do an asteroid.
Oh, what's
You
that?
know, one of the quick shots that you can do with the Mavic 2
Oh,
that
okay.
it goes out and then you see like the tiny planet. Have you seen this one?
No, I don't believe I have.
No, you have to see that, man. Yeah,
Okay.
it's check the quick shots. If you're using Mavic 2, is the one on the right, the extreme right, and it's called Asteroid, I think.
Okay.
Give it a try, huh?
I'm gonna
You
look that
should.
up right after this
Okay.
interview for sure. That
So
sounds
yeah,
cool.
yeah. End of the side note. Side note. So okay, so you can do automatic panoramas with Mavic 2. There's like there's one of the options there. It's not a quick shot. It's an option in the photography menu on the right side of the app, the
Hmm.
DJI app. You can do like panorama, and you press one button, and then it takes a picture of I think it's 300 degrees, but um, it doesn't get it doesn't turn towards the ground vertically, right? But it does panorama automatically. All right.
Okay.
There's another option which is also automatic. That is the Time Planet one. It does like 130 degrees panorama, and then it takes photos down, and then you can merge as a tiny planet. You can merge them as a panorama in a software like PTGui or like a software that's like more, more specialized in panorama. And then you have the tiny planets. You know
I
what I'm
do
talking about?
understand. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the whole idea, like you can see all of the landscape and it's formed into like a small ball and all of the
Yeah.
sky goes around it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that. So these are the things you do automatically. But the real good results are the ones you get when you do things manually. All right. You can't bracket when you're doing these automatic things.
Hmm.
So what I would recommend is like the first you have to like understand what the frame is going to be. So you need to understand the upper left corner and the bottom right corner. So you have like the rectangle. So you twist the drone, you spin the drone, and then you feel okay. So I'm gonna start here and I'm gonna end here, and then you understand how many rows of photos you're gonna need for that, right?
Hmm.
Then you control. I'm talking like too much, too many. But anyway, you can like you have to control the angle of the gimbal, right? You have that information on the right side of your screen. So
Hmm.
it's the inclination, the pitch angle, the inclination angle, right?
Okay.
Of
Okay.
the gimbal. And then you say, okay, so I started in, for example, 15, and then I go from 15 to minus 60, and then from minus 60 to 15, and then you make, I don't know, maybe 4 or 3 photos, and
Okay.
then you have the whole
Jeez.
uh,
Set of images that you can stitch
you
together.
know, you know,
Wow.
I usually sometimes when I take off, I spend about, I don't know, 10 minutes scouting, and then I take one photo. One photo, no, one panoramic. I have a panorama which has 186 photos.
Jeez. Do you bracket that at the
Yeah,
time
yeah,
and
yeah,
then?
Brecht. Yeah, it's an HDR
Wow.
panorama. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
I
incredible.
actually I
That
had to I had to change my PC to be able to process all that.
because it's so many photos.
Yeah, it was crushing. I couldn't.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Anyway, you
I'm
don't
dead.
need to go that far, but
Yeah.
try bracketing.
Okay.
Make sure you have some good data, so after you have like more options.
I will definitely do that. That definitely helps for sure.
Yeah.
Again, a world that I'm not deeply involved in, so I really appreciate all the help here.
Yeah, my
I
pleasure.
got a new question that I'm asking this year for all guests, and that is, if you had the choice to take 1,000 photos in a day or just one photo in a day, what would you choose?
Depends on the day.
So I guess
Man, like okay, it's a hard question because
so you're actually the first person who I've asked this question. So after I asked it, I realized that it needs to be reframed. Okay. So,
okay.
um, from a creative standpoint, would you rather take to achieve the most out of yourself creatively? Would you rather take 1,000 photos to get the one shot, or would you rather just focus all of your attention and just take one photo?
Okay, so you're putting like two options, which are two extremes here, right?
Right.
I'd
Yep.
say one because 1,000 is, I mean, you'd have like many lives to be able to process, even to select things among, the many thousands that you would end up within 1 month, right? But I'd say I'd be like, I prefer to take less pictures, but think a lot before taking them and taking them very, very precisely than taking 100 pictures just like a machine gun that you just like whatever.
Of course.
Uh, yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah.
I love it because, as you said, it's the two extremes, and I find that everybody's a little bit different. I think personally, I'd probably do better taking 1,000 photos, but there have been times where I think if I were to really sit down and try to, if I had a film camera and there was only one frame left, what would I do with it? That would probably force me to really slow down and really think about the photo that I was going to take to ensure that it was the best that it could be. And I just love hearing everybody's opinions because it helps me understand how everybody else sees the world and how I can kind of what's the phrase? We all I'm totally going to butcher this here, but we all get further because we're on the backs of others, essentially. And that's, we take the information that we get, and then we use that to further ourselves and
Sure.
and viewers and humanity. So I appreciate that. Now, Enrique, we've had a fantastic conversation today. I really do appreciate your time. Before I let you go, can you let listeners know where they can find out more about you online and see some of your images and what you got going on?
Of course. So I'm very happy to share my work. This is actually one of my objectives. Please have a look at my website, which is henriquemurta.com. Henrique with H, murta.com. You can see my galleries. Also, I'm about to start some photography courses in a few areas which I consider myself to have some knowledge that I'd say is valuable, which are panoramic photography, post-processing, landscape photography, everything from planning to capturing, drone photography, macro photography, and fine art photography, which would cover, all the marketing part of fine art and all the technical aspects of making your artworks become physical. So also Instagram, right? Instagram is the social network in which I'm like posting stuff sort of on a daily basis, like showing what I've been up to. So I also invite everybody to come visit my work in Instagram. My profile is at Henrique Murta _perspective, and be happy to share my visions.
Perfect. Enrique, man, thank you so much for our conversation today. I really appreciate it. I look forward to keeping up with you in the future and seeing all of your perspectives of the world around you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks a lot for inviting me. And whenever you want anything that I can help with, just you know where to find me.
What did I tell you? Enrique is just not some guy who just goes out and just flies his drone for fun and then snaps a few photos and happens to get some great shots in there. Like, he really works at it. I think my biggest takeaway from this interview was just hearing Enrique, how he took his two passions, geology and drone photography, and then he put them together to create this super passion, I guess. And while, photography, I think the photography side of his brain, while he's out, is obviously paying attention to things like light and composition. It's the geologist brain that is seeing interesting formations and unique features of the landscape. And then together, he combines those two skill sets to create something really compelling. It's interesting to think, for yourself, actually, what is another passion of yours that you could combine with photography to take your fulfillment in your passion even deeper? I would love to hear your biggest takeaway from this interview with Henrique Murta in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook community. Like Taria said in her iTunes review earlier, it really is full of supportive photographers of all levels and expertise. And if I say so myself, I think that it is the safest place on the internet for new photographers to share photos and ask questions. Again, if you're not a part of the group, you can join just by heading over to Facebook and searching for Beginner Photography Podcast. You'll see it. It's there. I hope to see you there. That's it for this week. Remember, the more you shoot today, the better you will be tomorrow. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review in iTunes. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.